Sentenced to be a Hero is a damn fine show. A damn fine show. It's a show that started off extremely strong, having the second best intro episode of the whole season. Yes, I said second. Fight me. Oh, but why is it the second best? Because Shibuyugi I liked more as a first episode. Why is that? Well, probably because Sentenced to be a Hero was a lot more action focused, and while action is great, it is not always my forte. So they are both stellar intro episodes, but of course, if you put a gun to my head and I had to decide which one is better, I was going to go putting Shibuyugi ahead of it. But they're still both great, and it's amazing. Having finished both series now, though, man, Sentenced to be a Hero just so much better. I mean, that's an easy enough thing to grant it when, I finish watching it and I'm not utterly pissed off like I was with Shibuyugi previously. So, Sentenced to be a Hero is a light novel adaptation, and it is probably some of the best animated stuff. And I want to be serious about that. Like, when a bigger franchise comes along and has stellar animation, right? If JJK comes in and has stellar animation, we love it. We're very thankful for it, but it's also kind of expected to a degree. Like when Sakamoto Days came along and didn't have good animation, that was a problem for a lot of people because there was an expectation of high animation. But for Sentenced to be a Hero, like I'm sure light novel people will disagree, but I don't think there was a built-in expectation that this was going to have some of the best animation of this season all throughout this entire 12 episodes of show. And it is stellar, but we'll get back to that. So what is Sentenced to be a Hero? Sentenced to be a Hero is a fantasy action series where this fantasy society has decided that for the absolute worst of the worst, one of the things that they can do instead of executing them is forcing them into some weird magical contract agreement thing that turns them into a hero, which basically means is that they are an indentured servant that can't die, because if they do die, they will just use magic and resurrect them constantly. And so being a hero is kind of looked down upon, but they're still called heroes because they are kind of forced to do heroic things. They are forced into situations that they're probably not going to survive from, and so they need to be heroic, and they need to do the heroic action of, oh, I'm going to go in and I'm going to save everybody and do all of this for my life, except it's not in sacrificing their life because they're going to get brought back afterwards. They're just problems with dying and resurrecting multiple times because you kind of lose yourself after a while, and they don't really go into that until later, and there's reasons for that. So the series follows one particular hero who was turned into a hero through not the best of methods because he was accused of things that he didn't actually do. A lot of the things revolving around what he was doing and what he was accused of is really bad and tragic and shows the fractures of the society in which he lives. But now he's a hero and he's being ordered around to go and fight off the demon incursions and the demon lords and, all these wonderful berserky creatures that are killing people and ruining the land. He ends up finding himself contracted to one of the world's 13 goddesses, this young little ball of pep and flame who is just utterly delightful. And despite being a hero, one of the bottom ranks of society, nobody can really do anything about the contracts between goddesses and their chosen knights. So, if they're wanting to use her at all for her abilities, and her abilities are kind of OP in a combat perspective, then they gotta keep this hero around and, use him accordingly. And so that's the series. They're going around trying to kill demon lords, politicking and espionage going on behind the scenes that you may or may not see. It may or may not be important. We don't know. And then 12 episodes later, here we are. So I wanted to start here at this point, having completed the show, as kind of saying, here's why I would recommend the show. Because I do recommend the show, generally speaking, overall. There's a couple of reasons why you might not want to watch the show, and we'll get to that. This show does two things really, really well, and we already touched on the first one a little bit, which is the animation. The animation is goddamn stellar. It has some of the best animation, not just in fights. I mean, fights is kind of a given. I don't like it when someone says, hey, this has really good animation, and they're really only talking about the fights. I'm doing a little bit more than that, because Sentenced to be a Hero, yes, it does have good fights. But when I look for good animation in a series, I want something beyond fights. So let me give you an example. One of my favorite pieces of animation of this entire season is actually coming from me, Frieren. There is a moment in Frieren, and it's some of the best animation that I've seen, where it's just involving interacting with a book. Just kind of the way that the hands are and the object is. It is a small moment. And the reason why I find those little bits of detailed animation very important is because it's kind of unnecessary, right? Because you can basically have the characters do the exact same thing with like 2 keyframes in between, and it doesn't need to look good. But when they make it look good, when they actually decide, no, we're going to do that for the little moments, that's good animation for me. You can have good fight scenes. A lot of shows have good fight scenes. I don't think that that's necessarily all that difficult. But when they also decide to do those little moments, that's where I get really interested. And Sentenced to Be a Hero does that multiple times throughout the series, where we just have these smaller, more intimate moments between some of the characters where the animation is just racked up to 11 and it didn't need to be there, but I love it so. So animation is a very big high point. I would actually recommend for a lot of people, if you're really into watching good animation, then to watch this series just based on that alone. The second good thing that I really like about Sentenced to Be a Hero is its characters on an individual scale. You meet a lot of characters in these 12 episodes. There are a lot of very colorful characters here, and none of them feel, well, one note, even though some of them get a little close to one note. But time constraints and all that, I can forgive it to a little bit. But most of these characters that we interact with are very deep, very detailed, and have motivations that even if they're not explained at the start, you get a feeling of who they are pretty quickly. And then once you learn their backstory, assuming you do, we learn a lot of backstory. Then you love these characters even more, because not only do their backstories usually help you get a better feel for the characters themselves, but then it also helps build the world, which is something the show's less good at. We'll get to that, because not only do we have our main characters, I would say that we really have three main characters, because we have our hero, Xylo, we have the goddess who follows him around, and then we have the leader of the Knights Battalion that kind of commands them throughout, and she basically becomes, if not an actual full-on protagonist by the end of the series, she's very close to it, and she's arguably, I want her to be POV character for a lot of season 2 when we get it. But we have those characters, but then there's like the whole battalion of other heroes that are there. They have their own motivations. They had their lives that led them to being arrested and tried and then actually sentenced to be a hero. Most of them didn't get turned into heroes for the best of reasons, and a lot of times you're like, because, you know, becoming a hero, unlike what they tell you at the start, is not just because you were doing such depraved stuff that there was nothing worse that they could do for you. No, becoming a hero is very much someone thought that you would be useful. More useful as a hero and as a tool than a dead body, and that is why you are a hero. There isn't like a list of, hey, if you do things bad enough, you will become a hero. It's more of a, no, someone happened to notice that you were on the chopping block and thought that you would be very useful to some of the things that they want to do, and so you became a hero so that you could help them, you know, unwillingly. And just watching the individual character stories, honestly, really, really good. You like to learn about these guys. You want to learn about, hey, why is this guy flying around with a dragon? How did that happen? How did he become a hero because he flies around with dragons? Can we see him fly around with dragons more? Yes, please, let's do that. And he is just one of many. Do we want to see the guy that they call Your Majesty, who sports a wondrous mustache running around and being a badass? Yes, please. This series is so good on the individual character levels, on introducing you to someone and being like, no, I want to see more of you. Or they introduce someone that's like not good and on the villain side, and you're just like, I want to see more of you because I also want to see you dead. I want to see you die horribly and painfully. It's not going to happen, but I'd love it if it did. Those are the things that this show does well. Those are the reasons why I would recommend this season, even though it's not complete, and we hope that it will be. Probably won't be, but there's still reasons why you should watch an incomplete work, because what we do have is good. I am not a person that likes to judge things based on the hypothetical future. Yes, you can go and read the light novel and find out more and figure out things that way, but then we're not talking about the anime anymore, we're talking about the light novel, which is a different medium, and that's fine. Now you can use that to predict how the anime in future is going to go, and you can hope that things are going to be better, but until we actually get it, you never know. How many times have we watched a really stellar season 1 only to get a season 2 that wasn't as good? It's happened enough times, but if I'm judging it just on season 1, it was a good season. It could have been a bit better, and I would say that a lot of the negative thoughts that I have about Sentenced to Be a Hero, well, I mean, a lot of it is just one of those pieces of circumstance. A lot of this season 1 felt like Not necessarily a prologue, but just the early on setup for more things. I think that one of the reasons why I enjoyed all of the time that we spent with these characters is because we spent so much time with these characters, and this season focuses heavily on building its cast rather than really dealing with its world building, to the detriment of the overall narrative. The overall narrative is kind of the problem that I have with the show at present. Again, not having read the light novel, don't really know where it's going. There's a lot of the big picture stuff we don't see, and the parts that we do see can get confusing because it's trying to do a lot of different things at once. And if you're trying to, it gives you a lot of pieces, but you don't know if you have all of the pieces, and you definitely can't put it together anytime soon. We spend a lot of time with the heroes, but the heroes are kind of being directed. They're being directed on site by the Knight Commander, but even she gets her own orders from elsewhere, and we don't know what their motives are. There's also the motives of the section of the knights that created the heroes to begin with. There is the motivations of the other knights that are contracted to the other goddesses. We don't really see them. We see one briefly, but we don't really get a feeling of what their interactions is like versus the main knight and goddess pair that we see all the time. The world is being overrun by demonic entities and demon lords, but some of the demon lords just seem to be like rampaging berserkers that we go and kill. We kill a lot of demon lords in this first season, but then you also have some demon lords that seem to be very conniving and highly intelligent. How does that hierarchy work? There is talk about a demon lord king or some other overlordly entity that we don't meet. What motivations do they have? In general, what is the demon's goal? Is it just wiping out all of humanity? If it was wiping out all of humanity, then why do you have some humans that are convinced that they can actually survive this demonic apocalypse? Because you also have a section of humanity that is like the co-conspirators. I think that the coexisters, I think, is what the show actually describes them as, because they want to coexist with the demons. They know, or they believe, that the demons are going to overrun everything, and so they're like, hey, we're going to join up with them so that when they do rule over the land, I'll be in a good position, having helped them to, be able to keep either myself or the people I care about safe from the demons. You're putting a lot of trust in demons, and we know how that probably goes. But for those people to exist, is it because A, the demons aren't planning to necessarily wipe out humanity? Or is it just that they want more semblance of control over the land and the world? Or are they actually going to be wiping out all of humanity? They're just telling some of the humans that they're not so that they can use them as useful pawns. Don't know yet. Then you have the anti-coexisters. That's a little bit confusing. You have the people that don't want to align with the demons, and they have their motivations, and some of them work for the church, which is their own thing, and then some of them work for the government and the royal family. That's something else. The royal family seems to be compromised by someone or something or some entity. There's a lot of different people or a lot of different groups and organizations with all different motivations, and we don't really know what's going on. You're getting hints that things are bad, but you don't really know who is in control, who has the power, and what does that mean for our characters? Are we being ordered around by people that are actually secretly controlled by the demons, or are the ones that are in charge of heroes not like that? You would think that anyone involved with the goddesses, who are like these divine beings that are supposed to wipe out all of the demons, you'd think that anyone involved with them would be fine. But we've also seen that the goddesses can't always tell when a demon is right in front of them. So when you have demons that can look like humans, you could have a human-looking demon at the high echelons of power, and the goddesses might not know. You don't know. It's one of those, I don't want to necessarily say, I may have already said it out loud, but this first season is not great with the overarching thing because it's not trying. And that is only a problem to me because, this is how it was written, with knowledge that, yes, it's part of a light novel and the light novels are going to continue. But as an anime, we don't really know where it's going and what's going to happen beyond. So from just season 1, it's terrible at all of this overarching stuff because it's not trying to set that up. It's only trying to loosely set that up for now. We're trying to focus more on the characters, and that's fine, as long as we get more. And we do, thankfully, have a second season confirmed. But based on the pace of everything so far, we're going to need more than that. We're probably going to need 4 or 5 seasons. Are we going to get 4 or 5 seasons? I hope so. That'd be lovely. But statistically, I feel like we're not. And even if we do, we're also probably not going to get anything to the animation level of quality of this first season. I could be wrong, and I would love to be wrong here, but that is a very real possibility. Because I do want to know more. I want to know more of the big picture stuff, because currently at the moment, we don't really get a lot of that. Like, the show's first episode is very stellar and very great, but beyond that, yes, the heroes get ordered around to go and do things, but we're not really sure why. We spend like the entire latter half of the show in one town, and we don't really find out what the importance of this specific town is. Now, we're kind of basically told you don't need to know. We know as much as the heroes do, in that the heroes don't need to know the big picture stuff because it doesn't concern them. That is for the higher echelons to decide, the people in power to decide where the heroes are put. The heroes are just pawns, and so even we as the audience only know as much as the pawns, which is not much. But the downside to that, especially with just this first season, is that it sometimes just feels like the narrative doesn't necessarily exist at all, and it's just a way to string along things from fight to fight to fight. And the fights are beautiful, and I love watching the fights, and they're great. But I wish there was a little more meat from a narrative perspective for this season, which we didn't get. But I mean, arguably, I could just be asking for the world. I want them to do everything. I want to have stellar animation, stellar characters, and an overarching narrative that rocks. Not every show can be Frieren. And that's probably unfair, because the overarching narrative in Frieren arguably doesn't go anywhere near as much, but it's just the overarching narrative of Frieren is set up in such a way that it's just easier to follow along. You have your main cast, and they're going north. They have a destination, and they are on the journey to that destination. And even if we get sidetracked, you can kind of feel like every episode sort of slowly gets us in that direction. The problem with Sentenced to Be a Hero is that we don't really know what the end goal here is. It's not like like, you think maybe it's wiping out all of the demons, but like with all of the corruption and all of the other things going on with just humanity in general, you don't really feel like that'll solve the problem, because it probably won't. So then what is the end goal here? We don't really know. And so it's hard to say that every episode is slowly pushing us towards that end goal in the same way. It probably is, it might be, but it's not as clear cut. The other problem I have, all right, this one's going to be a spoiler. You already heard my recommendation and everything, right? You should go watch Sentenced to Be a Hero. It is very good. The animation is stellar. The characters are great. That's enough for the recommendation on the whole. I'm about to talk about the final episode 12. So if you don't want to hear about that, know that you should go watch the show, and I recommend you to do so. And then you can come back later or not. Totally up to you. But there's your warning. So, Kivia. Out of all of the characters that we learn things about, we spend a lot of time with the heroes. We spend some time, with at least one goddess. Kivia is the one that kind of, to me, feels like she goes all over the place. And it's hard for me to like really coalesce my thoughts on her, because some of the things that we get are really good. You know that she has a very hard moral center, one that is pretty unshakable, and that's very good. We get that a lot in the first episode, and then that's sprinkled out throughout the series. And then at the end, in episode 12, she basically kills her uncle. Not because he was taken over by a demon, which is what I thought they were going to do. No, he's still human. But he just decides that no, he's one part of the coexisters, and he's like, no, the demons are going to win, but I have people that I care about, and I want them to survive the demonic apocalypse. So I am doing what I am doing for that. And that makes her killing him essentially. Not essentially, she just does it. But it makes their conflict like so great and good. The problem that I have with her is that, well, twofold, is one, she becomes a hero at the end. And a part of me doesn't jive with that yet. And it's probably because I don't know enough. We got dropped a lot of things in episode 12 about what it means to be a hero, how they are made even, and how they are maintained, because we knew none of that going forward. Like, I thought for the longest time it was just like some weird magical ritual that locked you into this. No, it all ties into this one specific goddess. What happens if she dies? If the first goddess is killed, does that mean that the heroes are just normal people again? Like, I mean, they're not, the only reason they're not considered humans, and they're not, that's all from a societal standpoint. There's no magical thing that's saying that they're not. They're just reincarnated people, and they are mostly fine and normal, except, you know, they have special abilities, like Xylo can freaking throw knives that explode. But Kivia decides to be a hero and chooses that. I mean, there is the argument that she didn't really have a choice. Depending on how you read the dialogue that she has in the cell scene, she might not have had a choice. She might have been turned into a hero whether she liked it or not. It's just a matter of she was going to die here, and will she choose to become a hero or not? There was a bit of an implication that her choosing to become a hero would be beneficial to her because it would be easier to be resurrected. And I think maybe her offering her own head, it was such a violent enough and a unique enough act that helps. I think we spent this entire show talking about how being a hero is not a good thing, right? Episode 1 makes that very clear, and then it's reinforced throughout the whole show. You don't want to be a hero. There's that one guy that chose to be a hero, but turns out he's a freaking demon lord. And that's a different question too. I don't even know if I want to touch him, but for Kivia, it's like, no, you're going to become a hero now. And you're going to choose this. You're going to choose to now be under the direct employ of a group or a person, because we don't know the motivations of this one knight guy that's been in everyone's backstories, turning them all into heroes. We don't know what his motivations are. She doesn't know what his motivations are, and she's going along with this. She is essentially killing herself to become a hero, to follow this guy, and we don't know what his motivations are. And that's one of those things that maybe it's because it's my moral core or something of that persuasion. It's like, you don't know whose side you're on when you do this. Now, you could argue that she didn't really have a choice anyway, because as I said, she was probably going to be made into a hero regardless, because somebody wanted her to be a hero because she was useful. The chances of her just dying and exiting the story from a meta perspective was never going to happen. But even within universe, the chances of her just dying and being forgotten was pretty low. But she still makes this choice when I feel like she doesn't have all of the information that she needs in front of her. And it's a very serious choice, because you can't take this back, because you're killing yourself, you're dying, and now you're being reincarnated, and maybe what they're telling you is a lie. There's still a lot of things about the aspect of the first goddess's power that we're not told, and we might not be told or ever be told, because how much knowledge exists in this world. It's one of those, maybe not how much knowledge exists. It's the knowledge is important. Knowledge is power. And so why would they ever tell you something unless it is beneficial for them to tell you? So the full extent of the goddess's powers will probably never be told to anyone except for her chosen knight, who we also haven't met, I don't think, because the guy we have met, I think he is the knight of the third goddess who can see the future and do all of that stuff. We don't know what their goals are. And so for Kivia to decide to do this and to throw her lot in with that, I don't know, it just rubbed me the wrong way. A part of me feels like it was just, she was being set up to be a hero, and this is just how it worked, and you're trying to force a square brick into a circle hole, and it doesn't always work as cleanly as you would like. But there are certain aspects of her character that I also just kind of wish weren't here. I like her combat ability. I like the entire thing with her uncle. I think that is one of such a well-written and acted and directed and animated scene and section, and it's just so good. I loved all of that. And then her choice to be a hero, I guess it keeps her in the story, but also like the immediate aftermath of her killing her uncle, she basically just kind of goes comatose and allows herself to be taken away and thrown in prison, even though she knows that there's corruption going on. She knows all of this is happening. She didn't have to be put in chains. She was fully capable of breaking out of her uncle's office and figuring out something else, but she decides to go in chains. She decides to be captured, and then she decides to be tried and then thrown in a jail cell. These are things she could have avoided, but didn't. And I'm just trying to separate the in-universe explanations for why this happens from the meta explanations for why this happens. And I don't like it when those are misaligned. And the last thing about her character that I don't like is I don't like the one-sided romance with Xylo. They keep hinting to it. She's a big ass tsundere. That's fine, but I don't feel like it was necessary. Like maybe that is one of those that is building up for something in the future. Although there are big questions there. Xylo just seems completely uninterested. He doesn't seem to be wanting a romance with anyone at all. He has an ex-fiance, but that almost feels like it gives off a lot of vibes of arranged marriage, and his ex-fiance is just really into it for one reason or another. We don't really know her motivations either. A lot of things motivation-wise we don't know. You can ship Xylo and Kivi a lot if you want, but since he seems completely uninterested, I just feel like it's not a plot that is worth pursuing, and why would you have it here? I think she works great as a character on her own without having to force her into any semblance of a romantic relationship with the show's lead. We don't need it. I don't feel like it should have been there. And it's just an extra addition to her character that feels a bit superfluous, and it's a little bit hard to tie it into everything else because you don't know how that's going to affect things. You don't know. I mean, someone could probably argue that another reason she became a hero is because then she gets to be closer to her love interest. And maybe, but I don't know if I like that. And then there was Rhino, and you know what? I'm going to leave that. We're going to save that for a season 2 when it's more interesting, because it's like, well, he's a hero, but he's a demon lord. But heroes are made because the first goddess is resurrecting people. She's resurrecting a demon lord. How is that working? Or is she just resurrecting his host, and the demon lord part of him is able to do something separate? I don't know. We don't know enough. And so I am very much looking forward to a season 2. I'm also looking forward to a seasons 3, 4, and beyond, because I really hope we get it. Because I don't like adding to my list of light novels that I need to read, because that list is already stupid long, and it basically just comes down to I'm not going to do it. Not because I don't necessarily want to, but because I don't have time to be constantly reading light novels. I spend enough time watching anime, and I would like the anime adaptations to be complete and to be an all-encompassing work of art. And with that, go watch it if you skipped my spoiler warning and listened to me anyway. And if you have seen it, I hope you will agree it was a very good show of this season. And that's it for me. Thank you to all of my patrons who allow me to go on these wonderful rants after spending some time watching a whole 12 episodes of anime. Even though it is not a complete show, I thank you regardless. And a very special thank you, of course, to my patrons, Aiden, City Yamako, Ryfen Bonaparte, Omar Showman, Ross Emerson, and Hector Montemayor for being especially awesome. You guys are great, and I can't thank you enough. So until next time, because we're getting dangerously close to the new anime season that I'm going to be spending so much time watching and trying to coalesce my thoughts on literally everything. My God, this season's going to be stacked. That might take a bit. We'll get to it. Until then, watch more anime and stay frosty.